The Vedic period, spanning approximately from 1500 BCE to 500 BCE, is a significant era in Indian history that laid the foundation for much of Indian culture, religion, and social structure. This period is named after the Vedas, the oldest sacred texts of Hinduism, which were composed during this time. The Vedic period is divided into two main phases: the early Vedic period, 1500 BCE 1000 BCE, and the later Vedic period, 1000 BCE 500 BCE. This essay explores the origin, kings, kingdoms, culture, town planning, religious practices, and trade of the Vedic period, providing a comprehensive understanding of this formative era. Origin of the Vedic period. The origins of the Vedic period are closely associated with the migration of the Indo-Aryans into the Indian subcontinent. The Indo-Aryans were a pastoral and nomadic people who spoke an early form of Sanskrit and are believed to have migrated from the Eurasian steppes into the northwestern regions of India around 1500 BCE. This migration is often linked to the broader Indo-European migrations that occurred during the second millennium BCE. The Indo-Aryans brought with them their language, culture, and religious practices, which gradually merged with the indigenous cultures of the Indian subcontinent. The Rig Veda, the oldest of the four Vedas, provides the earliest literary evidence of this period and offers insights into the life and beliefs of the early Vedic people. Kings and kingdoms. Early Vedic period. During the early Vedic period, the political structure was relatively simple and tribal in nature. Society was organized into tribes called janas, each led by a chieftain known as a Raja. The Raja was primarily a military leader responsible for protecting the tribe and leading it in warfare. The position of the Raja was not hereditary but was often based on merit and the support of the tribal assembly, known as the Sabha or Samiti. The early Vedic tribes were semi-nomadic and primarily engaged in pastoralism and agriculture. They settled in the northwestern regions of the Indian subcontinent, particularly in the area known as the Sapta Sindhu, the land of seven rivers, which includes the Indus and its tributaries. Later Vedic period. The later Vedic period saw significant changes in the political structure, with the emergence of more complex and centralized kingdoms. The tribal chieftains of the early Vedic period evolved into more powerful kings, known as Maharajas, who ruled over larger territories. The concept of kingship became more formalized, and the position of the king became hereditary. The later Vedic texts, such as the Samaveda, Yajurveda, and Atharvaveda, as well as the Brahmanas and Upanishads, provide evidence of the emergence of larger kingdoms, known as Janapadas. These Janapadas were often named after the dominant tribe or clan, such as the Kuru, Panchala, and Videha kingdoms. The Kuru and Panchala kingdoms, located in the Ganges-Yamuna Doab region, were among the most prominent and played a crucial role in the development of Vedic culture and religion. Culture, language, and literature. The Vedic period is characterized by the composition of the Vedas, which are the oldest and most authoritative texts of Hinduism. The four Vedas, Rigveda, Samaveda, Yajurveda, and Atharvaveda, are collections of hymns, prayers, rituals, and philosophical teachings. The Rigveda, composed during the early Vedic period, is the oldest and most important of the Vedas, containing hymns dedicated to various deities. In addition to the Vedas, the Vedic period also saw the composition of other important texts, such as the Brahmanas, ritual texts, Aranyakas, forest texts, and Upanishads, philosophical texts. These texts provide insights into the religious, social, and philosophical developments of the Vedic people. Social structure. The Vedic society was organized into a hierarchical social structure known as the Varna system, which later evolved into the caste system. The four main Varnas were: 1. Brahmins, the priestly class responsible for performing rituals and preserving sacred knowledge. 2. Kshatriyas, the warrior class responsible for protecting the kingdom and maintaining law and order. 3. Vaishyas, The merchant and farmer class engaged in trade, agriculture, and commerce. 4. Shudras. The servant class responsible for serving the other three varnas. The varna system was initially based on occupation and was somewhat fluid, but over time, it became more rigid and hereditary. Family and marriage. The family was the basic unit of Vedic society, and the joint family system was prevalent. The father was the head of the family, and the family structure was patriarchal. Marriage was considered a sacred institution, and various rituals and ceremonies were associated with it. The practice of monogamy was common, although polygamy was also practiced, especially among the ruling class. Education was highly valued in Vedic society, and the Brahmins played a crucial role in imparting knowledge. The Gurukul system, where students lived with their teacher, guru, and received education, was the primary mode of learning. The curriculum included the study of the Vedas, rituals, grammar, mathematics, and astronomy. Town planning. Early Vedic period. During the early Vedic period, the settlements were relatively simple and rural in nature. The people lived in small villages and practiced a semi-nomadic lifestyle. The houses were made of wood and thatch, and there was little evidence of advanced town planning. Later Vedic period. The later Vedic period saw the emergence of more complex and organized settlements. The growth of agriculture and trade led to the development of larger villages and towns. The towns were often fortified with walls and moats for protection. The layout of the towns was more structured, with streets and lanes arranged in a grid pattern. The construction of houses became more sophisticated, with the use of baked bricks and stone. The houses were often multi-roomed and included separate areas for cooking, sleeping, and storage. Public buildings, such as assembly halls and temples, were also constructed, reflecting the growing complexity of Vedic society. Religious practices. Early Vedic period. The religious practices of the early Vedic period were centered around the worship of natural forces and deities. The Rigveda contains hymns dedicated to various gods and goddesses, such as Indra, the god of thunder and rain; Agni, the god of fire; Varuna, the god of water and cosmic order; and Surya, the sun god. The primary mode of worship was through the performance of yajnas, sacrificial rituals. These rituals involved the offering of ghee, grains, and animals into the sacred fire, accompanied by the chanting of Vedic hymns. The yajnas were performed by the Brahmins and were believed to ensure the favor of the gods and the well-being of the community. Later Vedic period. The later Vedic period saw significant developments in religious practices and beliefs. The focus shifted from the worship of natural forces to more abstract and philosophical concepts. The Upanishads, composed during this period, introduced the ideas of Brahman, the ultimate reality, and Atman, the individual soul, and emphasized the pursuit of spiritual knowledge and liberation, moksha. The yajnas became more elaborate and complex, with the addition of new rituals and ceremonies. The role of the Brahmins became more prominent, and they were considered the intermediaries between the gods and humans. The concept of dharma, duty and righteousness, also emerged during this period, emphasizing the importance of fulfilling one's social and religious obligations. Deities and worship. In addition to the Vedic deities, the later Vedic period saw the rise of new gods and goddesses, such as Vishnu and Shiva, who would later become central figures in Hinduism. The worship of these deities involved the construction of temples and the performance of elaborate rituals and festivals. Philosophical developments. The later Vedic period also witnessed the emergence of philosophical schools of thought, such as Vedanta, which sought to interpret the teachings of the Upanishads. The concepts of karma, action and its consequences; samsara, the cycle of birth and death; and moksha, liberation from the cycle of samsara, became central to Vedic philosophy. Trade and economy. Early Vedic period. During the early Vedic period, the economy was primarily based on pastoralism and agriculture. The people reared cattle, sheep, and goats, and practiced subsistence farming. Barter was the primary mode of exchange, and there was little evidence of long-distance trade. Later Vedic period. The later Vedic period saw significant economic developments, with the growth of agriculture, trade, and craft production. The use of iron tools and implements revolutionized agriculture, leading to increased productivity and surplus production. The cultivation of crops such as rice, wheat, barley, and pulses became more widespread. Trade and commerce also expanded during this period, with the emergence of trade routes connecting different regions of the Indian subcontinent. The use of standardized weights and measures facilitated trade, and the exchange of goods such as textiles, pottery, and metal objects became more common. Currency and exchange. While there is no evidence of a standardized currency, the later Vedic period saw the use of metal objects, such as gold and silver, as a medium of exchange. The concept of money and credit also began to emerge, with the use of promissory notes and loans. Craft production became more specialized and organized during the later Vedic period. Artisans produced a wide range of goods, including pottery, jewelry, textiles, and metal objects. The use of advanced techniques, such as the lost wax method for metal casting, reflects the high level of craftsmanship achieved during this period. Conclusion. The Vedic period is a foundational era in Indian history that shaped the cultural, religious, and social fabric of the Indian subcontinent. The migration of the Indo-Aryans, the composition of the Vedas, the evolution of political structures, and the development of religious and philosophical ideas all contributed to the rich and complex tapestry of Vedic society. The legacy of the Vedic period continues to influence Indian culture and religion, making it a crucial chapter in the history of human civilization.